On the way, by Okay, you can go.
So I think we are live, yeah? Okay?
Yeah, you're live.
Hello.
I see that there are already 12 or 13 people watching in YouTube, which means that we are good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode, the sixth one of Online Space Debates. And today the subject is, according to the title, the Mediterranean Passive House. Let me tell you things about the concept and the discussion that we will try to create today with two very interesting colleagues. So the passive house concept, in the way we deal with thermal comfort, has entered contemporary architecture, especially geographic areas with cold climates. And at the same time, vernacular architecture is full of examples. Well-tempered housing conditions refer to hot, rather dry areas of Northern Africa, Middle East, and Southern Europe. What architectures are designers from the lower latitudes of the old continent, and how can this be combined with energy efficiency? What difference do we face, and what common futures can be highlighted? This will be the subject of our discussion. Before I introduce myself, I want to say a few words of the two colleagues that are with me today. And of course, I will begin from the lady. Tânia Teixeira is an architect from Portugal, responsible for the section housing within ENG, a locally rooted cooperative in Montemor on Novo. If I do mistake, Tânia, please correct me.
Okay.
In 2015, Tânia is a coordinator of Building Impact Hero Network, a network of associations and academic institutions from 6 European countries active in adult learning and sustainable architecture. And Domenico Pullino from Italy is also an architect and energy consultant. Domenico holds a master's degree in sustainable architecture and is part of the Casa Clima network, which advises public and private actors in the use of renewable energy in buildings. Since 2017, he is part also of ACO. I believe this is a company or something. And just saying 2 words from me, I'm Stefanos Pallantzas. I'm a civil engineer from Athens, Greece. I'm a certified passive house designer and also accredited certifier of passive houses. And I'm also president of the Hellenic Passive House Institute and member of the board, member of the technical committee of the International Passive House Association. So let me ask you guys, so I forgot to tell that all people that are following us in YouTube, they can make questions, they can participate in the discussion, making comments in the chat, the channel. I will read them and I will transfer them to the discussion here. But okay, let's try, Tânia. Let's begin with you. You are in Portugal. You are in a really continental climate where either heating or cooling are not so important in the housing. So, more important, I believe, in your area is comfort and indoor air quality. So, what do you think you can add in this discussion? What I told you about can we adapt a concept like passive house in our areas or in your areas?
Well, for me, it's already, I think when Stefan invited me, he knew already a bit my position. So to start, I would like to say that we have already, as you were saying, passive housing, like this concept in vernacular architecture. So when we think about passive systems, we are speaking already about designing with the sun, with the wind, with the direction, with the location, with the materials of the place. So we have already passive housing if the concept is this passive, we have already passive housing in the Mediterranean and in our continental areas. And the way we, in here we have, for example, a really dry summer and a particularly short but cold winter. So, for example, in my area, we build a lot with rammed earth, and we use a lot of thermal inertia to help to control and to regulate the humidity and temperature in the interior. But to complement this vernacular and traditional knowledge, we are improving a lot the air tightness of the roof systems and the windows. So I think this is something that goes along with the concepts of the, with the former passive house. But yeah.
When I started my experience with passive house 10 years ago, I asked at that time Professor Feist, who is the creator of the concept in Germany, if he was sure that we can implement the concept in the southern, in the Mediterranean area. And I also, before Dr. Feist, I also asked some colleagues of him, and I didn't get a clear answer at that time, 10 years ago. They were not 100% sure that we can do it. But the professor itself told me something that I always remember, and he was right. And now I will tell you because I'm sure that you will agree. His answer was, in the country of Socrates, it can't be difficult to create a house where the people inside are very, very happy during winter because it's warm enough, and during summer because it's fresh enough, let's say, or cold enough. So this was his answer. And the answer was, of course, this because he knows that Socrates described the so-called passive solar house, which is exactly what you have described before, the good orientation, the good ventilation, and everything like this. The only thing that we are doing now, developing a concept like passive house or casa clima, and Domenico will tell us later what exactly it is that now we have tools that we didn't have before. So we have simulations, we have modern tools to design better than before. And of course, also we have some small active systems because the tools now are giving us more, let's say, more advantages in order to decrease the demand, because the main target is to decrease the demand of the building and at the same time staying with quality of life inside the building. So, Domenico, if I start to speak, I will only speak. So please tell me also your comments, and comparing with Casa Clima, what do you think it's doable in the Mediterranean area?
Yeah, I'm an architect. I live in Rome. Rome is a warm city. The winter is not so cold. Also, the summer now is a little bit hot. In August, more than 40 degrees. And but I think the hot is also caused because for the city, it's the heating of the city, the asphalt, the cement that make so hot here. But if you move around Rome, near the beach, in the coast, and all in all coast of Italy, it's more warm, it's more comfortable, and ventilated. And for for my job, for my work, I try to understand. The first thing is to understand the climate, the wind, the light, also the environment of the contest. And after the university, I'm very curious about how to minimize the energy of the building. So I went to Bolzano to study as a consultant of Casa Clima, and also the Casa Clima is not it's a certificate that give to a house like a classification. You can have also the national classification with the but Casa Clima do different things with other formulas or other consideration different from the national certification. Start with for the building that are built in the north. So many things, most of the materials are for the winter. When I start now, try to understand also the different climate in the south of Italy, and try to modify also the classification for that. And also I'm a member of K0, and I'm a researcher for natural material, because I see that natural material works well differently from other material that we use before, like the derivatives of petrol or other material that don't work very well, and also are not sustainable. So I research with another material, and I find a lot of performance, dynamic performance that don't have other material, like the clay that absorb the humidity in the house, or and when it's too the humidity is under 50%, give to the house the comfort, and it's like a breath of the material. And I try also to understand the characteristic of this material, because now is the moment to see also to understand all the traditional building, also to understand, because before I think the vernacular architecture is an example, but they in the past built with the experience of the ancient past. So it's a different approach, and now we have also we can also monitor many things with the technology, and it's I think it's a good moment for the building, for the natural material, and to understand how is better the better construction.
Yeah, also because it's like to romanticize the vernacular housings is also a mistake. Like there was a lot of discomfort also in the houses, because in the past we were building almost to adapt only to the main extreme season. For example, here we had very good houses in the summertime, but in the winter time they were freezing. So like to say that everything was good, it's not correct. So we have now also different ways of building, and we have different technologies for improving these building techniques, and to for example, correct the capillarity water that was rising from the walls, which was provoking enormous problems, to improve the roofs, where like more than 30% of the heat is lost in the roofing. So like when you improve the roof, the window systems, the doors, you can have really in this context you can have an improve of the house also during the cold season. And we have also always to speak also of the like heating systems. If you are heating the house and you don't have a good insulation, then there is no inertia that can save you. You can heat up the massive walls full of inertia, but they will always lose a lot of heat. So for us, the challenge here was actually the winter time. And for example, what we are doing is to really don't how can I say, to put a lot of effort in the roofing, in the infisi, in the window systems, and in the heating. So when there's a possibility, we use the heating, the pavement heating. And there is also another thing that I would like to complement to what Domenico was saying about the clay material. The clay material is like almost a technological material in itself, because it acts like a phase-changing material. Like this thing that Domenico was explaining of absorbing and releasing humidity according to the advance of the seasons. So like the clay is releasing the humidity that it collects during the winter, when the humidity in the air is lower. So in the summer season, it releases, and by releasing it, it's also decreasing the temperature, because the reaction that it does by releasing the humidity makes the walls fresher. So imagine you have an entire involucro, an entire skin that is behaving according to also your needs. So when you need more humidity, it's releasing humidity. When you don't need excessive humidity in the air, because it's also decreasing the temperature, the clay is absorbing until 8 or 9 times more its weight in water. So it's interesting for the Mediterranean context to use this material, also because it's really available almost everywhere.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you both. But I have to say that we are also in a reality, because all of our countries are members of the EU, and there is an obligation of next year to create, and not only to create, because the biggest challenge is not to create new buildings that are nearly zero energy buildings, but also to renovate the old buildings. And this is the big challenge, because there, as you know, Tânia, you cannot change the walls, you cannot change something like this, you cannot change the orientation, so you have to deal with another kind of approach.
Yeah.
But still, coming back to the concept in the Mediterranean, I agree with you. You have to improve the insulation, you have to improve the windows, and so on. And also in Greece, I believe also in Italy, it's strange, but also in us, the challenge is the winter. It's if you say that to the North guys, they believe, they laugh, they believe, come on now, it can't be. I can tell you the worst example that I have experienced a few years ago, and it was a hospital here, a very famous and big hospital in Athens, and we made a comparison during winter for heating for this hospital with a hospital in Stockholm. Can you imagine that the hospital in Stockholm the demand was lower than the hospital in Athens?
Of course.
Of course
even if probably the difference of temperature was like minus 20 degrees or something like this.
Yes. And still the heating demand and the heating consumption, because there was an old oil heater there, it was crazy. It was 10 or 20% more than in Stockholm. So, but coming back, okay, the challenge is the winter. And the winter, you can only do anything if you improve the insulation. You must insulate, you must take care of thermal bridges, and of course, in our opinion, you must also take care of leaks, of insulation leaks. But this is another discussion, we will do it later. My question is for you, Tânia, or Domenico, Tânia first. If you think also for the summer that techniques like shading or night flashing or geothermal ventilation are very, not only from passive houses, but generally from houses.
Exactly. It's what I was saying from the beginning. Here, the key is that for our climate, we have during the day like around 42 to 46 degrees. And by night, it decreases like around 20 to 25 degrees. So you have a thermal excursion that allows you to refresh your inertia walls. And if you don't do these night flushings with the air, and will not have a fresher house. So there's also so of course night flushing is important, shading the facades, especially the south facades, but not having also enormous windows in the east and west facades, because these ones you hardly can shade. Only almost with vertical shading, and normally if you do this type of big glazings, you want to see the landscape. So we have always this duality, this discussion with our clients, and once they pass a bit more time in Alentejo, they start understanding why it's important not to have massive windows to this facade.
The trendy that is coming from the north.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
this is not architecture from the south.
No, and it's very difficult to control, because also you can improve your house for the winter, but if you use a lot of insulation and then you have a massive window to the east side, your materials will absorb all the heat, and imagine a day of 42 degrees. You can't let this heat escape until it arrives 9 to 10 p.m. when you start having a colder breeze. So like it's always you have always to be very smart, also reading what is around you. But there's also another thing that it's very important, which is like you have to educate the people living in the houses. So if you don't open your flushings, you don't have the effect that that your house can have. Or if you don't shade your windows when there's a lot of sun, and like if you don't shade, you will not have a fresher house also. So it's also a question of education, let's say.
Yes, exactly. Zeta is asking about thermal inertia, and she said that it's an important factor of thermal comfort of the building. But Domenico, can we measure it? Can we include the thermal inertia in our calculations? Because look, I will add to this question the following: the most important issue that we face during the last, let's say, 2 decades in designing energy efficient houses is the so-called performance gap. So many people, many architects, they design pretty well, but if we go to the implementation, there are some rules that are not followed during the implementation, and this drives to a big gap between what we have calculated in the beginning and how the building is performing. What is your experience on that?
Yes, I want to say something about the Tânia. I agree with the Tânia and about the shade and also the because in the summer sometimes it's better. It's good to have like a shade that you can move, you can orient it, because sometimes don't have the you can choose if you want to have more light or I think for the summer we have to try like a dynamic shade, but it's not not only domotic shade or like but you can move and you can also change the form of the shade. And for the other question, Stefanos, we have to monitor also the building for to understand the performance and
Sorry, Domenico, in our tool in PHPP, for example, we do consider the thermal inertia in the calculation in a way. It's not so 100% right, but it is at least something. I don't know what you are doing in Casa Clima if you take the thermal inertia in
some for the thermal inertia, the way to measure it or to understand or calculate is a dynamic calculation, hourly calculation, because you can check the formulas for before for the rules for consider the static temperature. Also like average, a monthly average. So when you have you design the building for average temperature, but it's for the summer it's not very correct, because you have also a dynamic heat transfer. You can the time of that the heat come inside the house is different of the inertia, the thermal inertia. So for correct calculation of the performance, we have to use another, not a static method of calculation, but a dynamic method. Yeah, it's a lot of software that do these things also free, so we can implement it, also the design of building with some simulation, with the simulation, dynamic simulation.
Okay. Okay, and now let's go to the subject indoor quality, because I believe this is also the most important. I told you, in my opinion, the biggest challenge for the next 20 years will be the existing buildings and the renovation. And there, I believe, at least in Greece, that we live in really sick buildings. And for me, the most important thing is not just to reducing the demand for heating or for cooling, but to create for people, for citizens, a good indoor environment, which we don't have at the moment. And I wanted to ask you, for example, Tânia, to tell me, okay, we improve the insulation and we improve the windows, and we make, even if we don't want, we make the building more airtight. So this means that the building needs more ventilation. But you understand that if we open, we just if the only chance that we have, or the only options that we have, is just opening the windows, this costs again in energy.
I would like to
your opinion about the systems that has to do with mechanical ventilation.
First, I would like, before speaking about mechanical insulation, ventilation, I would like to speak about the traditional materials again, because when we are speaking about renovation, or in our case, new buildings, we are only using materials that are mainly breathable. So we don't use materials that don't allow the excessive humidity that's in the indoor ambience to be stored in the walls or to be slowly transmitted to the exterior.
Okay.
So this, from my point of view, reduces the need of this mechanical ventilation.
Okay.
Because part of the action of the mechanical ventilation is to take out the excessive humidity that forms in the ambience, also to renovate the air, of course. But I don't say that we don't need the mechanical ventilation, but we can reduce it. And I'm saying that we can reduce it, and I'm not abandoning this question just because I don't believe that our clients will open the windows when it's needed and close it when it's needed.
Okay, you are right. And I can tell you also my experience, which says that for us, in order to promote and to offer the passive house, the most difficult thing is to convince the client about the mechanical ventilation, which is very, very low, as you said. So we always calculate the ventilation in the lowest and only needs of the persons that are inside, and with the total ventilation that has to do with that we change the total volume of the building one time every 3 hours. So it is very, very low. But still, it is very, very difficult to convince people, to convince users to accept the ventilation. The big joke is that at the end, when they go into the house, they go to the house and they live for a couple of months. And then we go back, for example, with another potential client, just to show him the building. And they ask the owner, what is your first experience in the house? The first thing always that they said is the good indoor air quality because of the ventilation. But this is the first thing that they always answer. So for me, it's on that, and I believe it's really the big difference. I also live here in a passive house. Here is an office, but you can see behind me the pipes, which are shown because in order to see people to see what is exactly. But I can tell you also my own experience when I go now on trips or even on professional trips and I must live in a hotel. I always open the window during the night because otherwise I cannot sleep.
But can you tell me just? Can I just ask you? Sorry. Can I just ask you your opinion also about this contribution of the breathability of the walls to this indoor air quality? So that you just tell. I know that it's inverting a bit.
For me, in every building renovation, not only in terms of passive house, but also in general terms of renovation, the biggest problem in the renovation process is the issues with humidity. And of course, the issues with building humidity, so the humidity that is inside the walls, and you cannot bring them out so easily. That's why we always tell our clients when we deliver the renovated house that it can happen that during the next 2 years, somewhere in the building, and humidity will be faced on the wall. It can happen because we don't have the time. They don't give us the time, and they don't give us also the money to absorb all the humidity that is inside the building envelope. So this can happen, and this is the most important thing in the renovation.
Yeah. Also, in my experience, the mechanical ventilation works for the especially for the renovation, and because sometimes the humidity depends also of the use of the house for the people, and also the client that says that they more comfortable, and also the heating system is they turn on the system, heating system late, less hour than before. So because also you can a lot of energy waste to open the window, and also in the summer you can have like a nice flashing, but yeah, you can not have like the you don't need the control of the heating, but you can also have like a nothing flashing. Many architects do this, install the mechanical ventilation because says that it's for the most you don't have the yeah, for the master that and also but it's I think you can do it also with the materials, so it's not the way to use the mechanical ventilation, but you have to design the details, the good details, and understand the how the performance of the wall and of the house.
Okay, we can, in my opinion, and it's not my opinion, these are the statistics. If you are satisfied with 30% more consumption in the house, you cannot use a mechanical ventilation. You will have a similar comfort, but it will cost a little bit more. But okay, this is an opinion. I told you, for me until now it's very, very difficult to convince someone. But at the end, I have a fan club of people that say ventilation is #1 in my house. But okay, this is something that I experienced. On the other hand, I wanted to ask you both, because you know that you can design and you can build the perfect house, and if the user comes and doesn't behave appropriate, he can destroy every concept that we can discuss here, every concept. So we have done in Hanover, in Germany, a few years ago, 20 years ago, a big experiment with 35 identical houses, one after the other, and we have put 35 families inside with 4 people, and we measured for 1 year what happened in these houses. Same orientation, same square meters, everything was identical. So we have consumptions from 5 heating, from 5 kilowatt hours per square meter up to 45 kilowatt hours per square meter. In the same area, in the same house, from similar people.
Yeah.
So, and the question is, because this is the performance gap, so you cannot do anything. So how do you think, how important it is to guide the users after delivering the house, and how important you think is to track the performance and show to the users? Because many studies until now show that even if you just show to the user his bad behavior, he will improve his behavior. And because we speak of saving the planet, every detail matters at the moment. So do you think that it is important to track the building performance? Or are you afraid as an architect, because you are afraid that someone will come to you and say, you are responsible because your design was not good and not my behavior? Tânia.
No, I think it's really important to track whenever it's possible. And educating is not only after the delivery of the building. You have to educate your client since the first sketch, because you are proposing probably a behavior change. And if your client is not, how can I say, if he's not ready to accept this, you can design the perfect house, as you say, but the consumption will be always proving that you did the wrong design. But so like tracking can help readjust and to show the client that he still can improve, or if he's doing according to what is expected. What is the if we are having a higher consumption, why is this happening? It was bad implementation in the building site, which can happen, but this is due to a bad control of the building phases. So we hope this doesn't happen. So the last thing that can happen is that the rules of living in this house are not being filled. So tracking always.
Domenico, what do you think of that?
Yeah, also for me, it's important to tracking the building performance. Also to understand if there is something wrong, wrong use of the house for the people that live there. So, and also to understand if the monitor of the performance is similar to what you simulated. It's good to understand that, and you can improve, you can do better, and for the people that live there, I use
building stock, because in terms of architecture, these are much better buildings than before, that we designed in the late 90s and in these two last decades. And I believe that we have to save some more of these buildings, although I am in an area in Athens where only single family houses are here, and the big challenge is the center of the city where big multi-family houses are there, and nobody cares about this. And the big problem there is that we don't have social housing, so we have, for example, a big multi-family house with 50 apartments and 50 owners, and there is no chance that they will agree in a renovation. And I really don't know how we can face with this problem. I really don't know what will happen with these big buildings in the center of the cities. I don't know if you have similar experience in Italy and in Rome, maybe, and in Portugal.
Stefan, can I just ask you something regarding to the story you told about your building? Can you tell me just like the 5 main topics you worked in project to make this building better and net zero?
It was the 5 principles of the passive house. It's very, very important. It's insulation, it's thermal bridging, it's windows, it's air tightness and mechanical ventilation. That's all. It's not something extra or something expensive or something. It was very, very simple as possible.
Well, here we have also these same problems. We face especially one like a kind of a challenge, which is when there's a multi-story building and you are renovating an apartment. And for isolating this parts of the building, you have to do it from the inside, but you are losing the thermal mass.
It costs double.
Yes, and you are losing the thermal inertia, which is also a very important thing in our climates. Like you improve really a lot the building for the winter time, because with the insulation it's it's amazing. You heat up the apartment with really little energy, but then for the summertime, if you don't have a very good cross ventilation and you really try to use also plasters with earth that help to control the level of humidity and to release some water, it's always very hot.
Yes. Of course.
So you have to control really well the shading of the windows. You have to try to conturn this problem with other topics, and in the end, the worst thing is sometimes you have to put a fan or an air conditioning if you are just insulating from the interior. And so now you can also have the heat pumps and that is almost considered renewable energy equipment, because with the 1 unit of energy it produces 5. So, but still it's a very active system, and if you can like in our climate, if you can insulate the building from the exterior is better. Or to focus more in the insulation of the windows and the roof, and if the walls have enough thermal mass, so if they are not with the hollowed bricks, you can you can, how can I say, skip the insulation of the walls. But if it's hollowed brick, you have to insulate it because it's there's no other way.
In Greece, we as a team, we don't insulate internal. The only way to insulate internal if we are not allowed to do it external. And it is very, very complicated. You have to deal with a lot of things in humidity control, and it's not so easy. It's not so easy. So we try to avoid it if possible, but you understand we have also historical buildings, and in historical buildings you are not allowed to do anything from the outside.
Exactly.
You do it from the inside.
The problem also for the insulation, internal insulation, is thermal bridging, and also the condensing after the
installation, of course.
The insulation and the brick, or
you have to use a lot of membranes and like to try to avoid the vapor to escape.
Yeah, that I don't like, because I try, if it's possible, to make the wall that the humidity can go out.
Of course.
The wall without membrane. Sometimes I reduce the insulation, because it's the only way to.
But Domenico, if the building is from the 60s, 70s, and it's hollowed bricks plastered with cement, so it's not breathable at all already, how do you do it?
With for the insulation, you do the insulation outside, or you cannot?
If it's an apartment, like if it's a multi-story building where you can't insulate through the exterior, so the only way is insulating inside. Should we insulate or not?
We should leave the building.
Yeah, you should implode the building, but sometimes you can't. You have a lot of bad construction, and you have to take advantage of what is built already. So can these membranes be a solution, so that the vapor doesn't cross the insulation until condensate in the cold wall outside?
No, I try to reduce the insulation, maybe the plaster more bigger, maybe with some I don't know, straw or something like that, that can be more insulated. Yes, and also try with some because for the winter we can with here in Rome, yes, we can reduce the insulation. It's for the winter, but for the summer, it's a problem if it's too hot with the cement. In the summer it's very hot, and sometimes in the 60s they use some like a metal roof or something like that. That is very it's terrible for the summer, and for that, we have to understand every apartment is different, because in Rome we have like a courtyard. We can use some refresh area from the courtyard or plants or something, but it's very difficult. The challenge is for the existing building, but it's not simple things for little apartment or for a building.
It's true that in the ancient buildings, like until this pillar hollowed brick system started to break through, like you can still do a lot of things because you have this thermal inertia and you have a breathable wall. So if you respect the materials and you use compatible materials, if you also, if it's like here we have a lot of houses that are just one floor, so we have a lot of capillarity problems. So we put also a lot of gravel to try to drain the foundations. And to then intervene in the roofing, like we managed to do a great house. But with these apartments in the middle of the city that are made with these materials, it's really difficult because, like, I didn't found yet the perfect solution. Maybe like these hempcrete systems that also are a bit of insulation and at the same time are absorbing excessive humidity, so they are not an extreme insulation, and they can still store a bit of they have a bit of mass. Maybe it could be a system also with the straw bricks, but I still I'm still not sure.
Yeah, you have to monitor.
Speaking of renovation, what do you think is the most effective method to renovate? Because these are, let's say, two philosophies that are existing in Europe. I don't know which is exactly the most effective one. There are some people that think that we have to do. It's effective to go with a step-by-step renovation, to study the building, the existing building, and then try to get the best results, but do it step by step. Let's say insulate the north wall this year, and then next year or after 2 years improving the windows, and then after another 2 years insulating the rest of the walls and so on. This is the one philosophy, and the other one is to go at once and make the renovation as soon as possible, as quick as possible. In Netherlands, they called it the energy sprong. This is the new trend at the moment in northern countries. So we go with a prefabricated, even with a prefabricated external facade to the whole building, to the multifamily building, and renovate it in 10 days. And that's all, because this facade is including also all the systems, new systems, everything, shading, everything. So what do you think it's better for these old existing buildings to do? Because the third option is to demolish, but we have to avoid it.
It's hard. I think it depends a bit on the building. So if it is one family house and you don't have the budget to do
we speak
it
mainly
all
of
in a row.
multifamily.
Okay. So I think actually this can be like, if you have a building that you can't do anything else with it because the comfort inside is not good. It's provoking problems like breathing problems to the people inside, or like of course it's better if there's money, because this is always the question, and we are speaking about Netherlands, we are not speaking about Portugal, Greece, or Italy probably. So if there's money, of course it's more interesting to do an intervention in a row, because it's more consistent and it can solve a lot of problems that you will not be able to solve in the slow step-by-step action. But this, I think it depends. It's the thing. It depends on a lot.
Okay. Domenico, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I think for the reality, it's very difficult to do all things together. Sometimes for economic problem, or it's more the cost, it's more elevated. I try to understand which things is more efficient for the building, and try like a classification for the steps to do. Like the first insulation, second that, and try to quantify the impact of that of that things, and and also the impact of the economic cost for the building.
Okay. So I believe we are full of time. I imagine it was something like an hour. We are already quarter past this hour. But I have a last question for you, because I saw Tânia's office there with a lot of young people, and I have also young people here. So I don't know what is happening in you are both architects, and I respect that you are architects, because I'm not. I'm a civil engineer. But I understand that we have made this year a student competition in order to design a passive house kindergarten, the first one here in Greece. And we were in this trip, let's say, we understood, we got the results that in architecture faculties in Greece, there is a single lesson about energy design and energy performance of buildings. I don't know what is happening in your universities, but I wanted to ask you if you think, is it important for an architect to know energy design, or is it just something that someone else can do? Tânia.
Well, I think it's important to know the principles. Of course, that I think we don't have anymore this idea of the architect, of the star architect that has everything and solves everything in a gesture with a pen. So we have to work in teams, and we can complement each other, but we have to have little notions to be able to communicate and to understand each other. So if for us it's just like a total, how can I say, that it's not something that you ever thought about, you can't communicate with the other person. So even if we have always to work with good thermal engineers, we have to know the notions and to have the principles. And when I studied, at least, we didn't have a lot on these topics. Energy was not something considered to be part of what an architect should think about.
Domenico, what is happening in Italy?
Yeah, also for me the same. In university, we don't study the principle, the physical physics we study, but not how to design and make a design with this principle. I think it's good to integrate this concept with also not only architect but also engineer or other person that know this principle. For me, after the university, I studied these things. I try to see how the form of ancient building can be useful for the comfort and to understand that also are very natural a natural form of the building. It's good to do that with the student to give the experience also. It's good. I think it's good things.
Okay, so I believe it was a perfect discussion. I'm very happy that I have this more than an hour with you. I really didn't understand that it passes more than 50. How many? 1.5 hours maybe. So thank you very much. I really was an honor to discuss with you, and I hope next time I will see you not via a screen, but maybe on a Greek island in a summer camp speaking about Mediterranean architecture. So thank you very much, and thank you all that you have followed us in.
That sounds great. Challenge accepted.
Yes. Challenges. Okay. So thank you, Domenico and Tânia. Thank you all for following us. Have a nice evening.